Hey guys, it's Amari here. I am at the FPT convention in Oslo, Norway, here with a special guest, James Krieger, who's one of my mentors and a guy who I learned a lot from, and a guy who you should definitely follow if you're interested in evidence-based nutrition, fitness in general. Hi James.
Hi.
Great seeing you again here.
Yeah, it's good to see you again too.
Can you let the viewers know a little bit about your history and before we dive into the does sugar make you fat debate?
Yeah, so I've been involved in the fitness industry for a very long time, since the late 90s. I was back on discussion forums with Lyle McDonald way back then, and have been involved ever since. I've published a lot of studies now, a lot of collaboration with guys like Brad Schoenfeld and Alan Aragon and everybody. I have a website called Weightology, and yeah, I've been very active in the industry. I'm very evidence-based. I've got a master's degree in nutrition and then a second master's degree in exercise science, and used to be the research guy for a weight management program that treated Microsoft employees. Our average weight loss was 40 pounds in about 3 months, so It was a really successful program. But yeah, so
very impressive, and I'm gonna link to some of your work,
Yeah.
studies, and website in the description below for you guys, so you don't have to pause the video to Google your name. One huge debate on online and on any video out there that talks about weight loss, dieting, or anything, someone mentions sugar, and that sugar makes you fat. So this whole sugar hypothesis, this whole craze in the media that's happening, I'm sure you're well aware what's
Yes.
happening. So the big question: does sugar make you fat, and why people blame certain things like that in general?
So the answer is it depends. If you're overeating on calories, then yes, sugar will make you fat, but so will fat and other carbohydrates or anything else you're overeating.
Exactly.
If you're not overeating on calories, no, sugar will not make you fat, and it will not make you any more fat than any other macronutrient. Sugar is not inherently fattening in any way. Now, can sugar contribute to overeating? Yes, through how good the food tastes. It makes food taste good. A lot of foods that are very energy dense have a lot of calories that packed into a small package, typically are high in sugar. But it's the energy density that's really making you fat, not the sugar itself.
Yeah, they're high in fat as well. Right?
Yeah, typically they're high in fat as well. So, basically it's through energy density, the food form. Some sugar-sweetened beverages are not as satiating as solid forms, so you can maybe tend to overeat on those, and just again palatability, how the food tastes.
From
Sugar
a general
makes food taste good.
standpoint about let's say a food addiction, some people will say, well, it's like cocaine. They literally say sugar is like cocaine. I mean, what is that?
No, it's not true. It's you can't. I could go all the reasons why it's not true, but no, sugar is not addicting. I think where people get that idea is that addiction and pleasure and reward that we get from food tend to share some of the same brain pathways, but it's not the same thing. There's nothing, and again, I'm not going to go into all the reasons why sugar cannot be considered addicting, but I mean, one obvious reason is that, a true addictive substance, if I give you more and more and more, you will keep taking more and more and more. But that's not true with sugar. Even anyone who thinks they're addicted to sugar, no, because I can increase the concentration of sugar so much that it tastes so bad that you won't eat it. That's not true with drugs. Okay, doesn't matter. So that's not truly addicting. So.
Well said there. In general, I mean, how would you approach, let's say, setting up a diet? And should people even consider, let's say you figure out your calories roughly, and you're tracking kind of MyFitnessPal or some other tool, whatever your tool is, you kind of set up your protein. Would you even look at what type of carbohydrate you would even get in? And in general, high carb, low carb kind of aside from...
Honestly, not really. I mean, I think that as long as most of your foods are coming from relatively whole sources, you don't have to worry about the sugar intake or
fruit, general.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to be counting your sugar grams. You just the sugar intake will kind of take care of itself in a sense. When if you're hitting your macros, your overall macros, and again, if most of your foods are relatively low energy density foods,
Yeah, real food essentially, unprocessed food.
Yeah, for the most part, you know. The sugar intake will take care of itself. You don't have to worry about it.
And I'm sure that most of guys here are, when you, let's say, download MyFitnessPal, and by default, the app tracks sugar.
Yeah.
And if you go over a certain limit, you know, it gets you these warnings, even though you might have just ate fruit and stuff, really, really healthy stuff. And of course, I mean, you've just said that doesn't really matter. There's no reason to concern. It's not going to make you fat somehow.
Yeah.
In general, like, take care of your calories and macros, and
that's all that matters, really.
Exactly. And as far as in general, why do you think people think calories don't count? You know, people legit approach me many times, despite the evidence we have, metabolic reward studies, we have a century of research on this. Why people tend to fall into that calories don't count?
I think because it implies this idea that, well, if you are fat, it's because you're lazy and that you have no control over your eating. I think there's a certain judgmental, when people think of that, of calories in and calories out, people have attached this judgmental stigma to it. But look, it doesn't mean that you're lazy, and it doesn't mean that you have no control over your eating. You know, there's a lot of biological factors that affect your energy balance. There are biological factors that affect your appetite. There are environmental factors that affect how much you eat. And so, you know, but I think that's why people want to get away. It's that judgmental stigma. So people want to find something that they can point their finger at instead.
External.
They want to point. Oh, it's the sugar, you know, or it's the gluten, or it's the carbs, or it's the fat. Or they want one thing to pinpoint, even though that's not the case.
Yeah, and I loved your talk. Me and James met up back in the UK, in Bath, UK, and your presentation was on non-excessivity thermogenesis.
Yeah.
And even then, some of the research you presented that if you overfeed, even twins, between the pairs of twins, from the 1990 studies, you know, some people will store most of that, some people will store it in different places, some people won't. It is just genetics, environment, so many factors. We can't just... There's a huge map that Alan Aragon posted today on the presentation.
It's
what is the cause of obesity? It's just, wow, you know, to zoom in on one.
Yeah.
And in general, like, calories count, and you would kind of set up the diet. What's your process? You know, the calories, the protein. What's your
I mean, for me personally, I mean, I don't have any clients now, but I know for myself, I always just set the calories first. You know, I mean, that's the most important thing. And then the protein second. Exactly. Those are the two most important. Calories first, I mean, because that determines whether you're going to gain or lose or maintain.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay? Then the protein is the second most important, because that's going to determine where the loss or the gain is coming from, right? In a sense. I mean, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein. If you're losing, you want to make sure most of that loss is coming from fat and not fat-free mass, and that's where the protein comes in. So, and then the protein has other benefits like keeping you feeling full, especially, for example, if you are dieting. And so that's the second most important. And then the carbs and the fats really are a matter of personal preference, and also based on, you know, your training levels and everything. Obviously, the more you train and the harder you train, the more carbs you need. And if you don't train as much, you probably have more wiggle room as far as how many carbs versus how much fat you want to eat. So
yeah, exactly. And this whole myth of like insulin resistance or these kind of things, people get so caught up into it.
Yeah.
Really look at your own preference. What types of foods do you enjoy? Some people that with backgrounds like, let's say mine from Croatia, it's a lot of carbs there. Like, it's a lot of carbs, like very similar to Italy, for example. And you will have those carbs. And if you look at Italy, observational, of course, not a randomized controlled trial, it has really low obesity rates in general.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, this whole idea of fighting carbs, it's just without any legit evidence behind it, and it's another fad, it seems. And we'll see what evidence brings in the future. I want to thank James for coming on the channel. And
thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
I'm not sure where your next talk is, wherever it is. If you're nearby, we can.
I don't have no more scheduled for this year, but hopefully I'll be back here in Europe next year. Nothing has been officially scheduled yet, but.
Yeah, and guys, AFPT convention here in Norway, one of the best events. The lineup is absolutely incredible.
It's an amazing event.
We had such an amazing time here with these guys, and again, pleasure. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Quick video here from AFPT, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
All right, man.